Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of The Independent Activist with me, Fra Hughes, here in Belfast. And we have Maeve joining us today. You're very, very, very welcome. It's a pleasure and an honour to have you on the show. We've met a few times at different kind of Palestinian solidarity events, and I believe that you are appearing in Westminster Magistrates Court in January. Would you like to tell us how that all came about?
Yes, so during the summer in August, I just got a notion really to go over to the Palestine Action protests that had started. Defend Our Juries in England were running them. And I thought, like a lot of us, I think there's just been so much, a feeling of hopelessness or a feeling of not doing enough when it comes to trying to stop the genocide in Gaza. So I thought maybe I'll do this, go right to the belly of the beast and protest there. And so yeah, I went over, and I think at the time weren't really sure whether they'd bother arresting people. I mean, I think the target was for 500 people to go. So that's why I thought like they needed numbers. And I thought, sure, look, more is better. And I was on holidays. I was off my summer holidays. So I thought I'll do it. So anyway, I got there and there was an awful lot of police, and it was pretty clear that they were going to arrest everybody. So they did. And I think at the time, the deal was they said, look, stay for 1 hour. And if they don't start arresting anybody, then everybody can leave. And I think it's starting at 1. And I mean, the police started to arrest people pretty much straight away, even before 1 o'clock, even before it actually officially started, they started to arrest people. And that was when I knew it was going to happen. So was duly carried off to Charing Cross Station. A very nice police officer who didn't seem very comfortable with the whole what was going on, to be honest, and was put in a cell and then released a few hours later on bail, and went on my merry way. And then I was supposed to reappear. They've been back and forth. They can't really cope with the number of people who they've arrested, so they've moved the dates and everything. So eventually, anyway, I think January the 12th. It looks like it had been supposed to be in December, and they've moved it to January. So that's my time in Westminster Magistrates Court, up on the Section 13 charge under the Terrorism Act for holding a cardboard sign. So yeah, I think it's been a very, it's like everybody, it's just what do you do, so I have to say it felt good sitting there. It felt good being in front of Westminster, because I'm really so disgusted, and not surprised, but still disgusted at the behaviour of the English government. I think they've been, complicit beyond what I expected. And, it was enjoyable almost to be, to just cause them so much hassle, to be one of the people arrested, to tie up that many police force for that long and all that, and cause them that kind of embarrassment, because there was a lot of media there. There was a lot of embarrassment, a lot of shock that would happen in a supposed democracy in the supposed West. So see how it goes. Anyway, as I say, I'm still at large until the 12th of January. And then I think it's just a plea, guilty, not guilty.
So I would imagine then that you have legal representation and that anyone else who's maybe brought before the court at the same time. I mean, you're obviously not going to go in unrepresented. What's the kind of legal advice, or what is the kind of legal outlook? How do your kind of defense barristers or whatever, how do they feel about this whole prosecution? Where do they feel it's going? Do they feel it's political? I mean, personally, that would be my opinion, that these are political prosecutions in order to defer protests highlighting a genocide. So what are they saying? Are they saying, bring a suitcase with you, you might be going home? Or are they hopeful that this is somehow going to not disappear with a magic wand, but it could be bound over to keep the peace? Bail instructions that you can't go to protests. What do they think in their experience might happen, or are they on unsure ground just like the rest of us?
Yeah, I think it's this kind of Section 13 action. Usually that's for showing support for a prescribed organization, which now Palestine Action is. But just the numbers, the sheer numbers of people, they think that the system can't cope, so they can't incarcerate us all. Now, under Section 13, I think it's up to 6 months in prison or a fine, and they're reckoning, and then costs. So they're reckoning in terms of money. They're reckoning it's more likely to be a fine. A few hundred, but they don't know. This is what they're sort of estimating, just based on the amount of hassle or whatever. And but as I say, they can only kind of, as you say, they don't know. There is no real precedent for this. And I think I don't know when like my actual trial will be and all that. I think I'll be just to do my plea in January, and then I assume it's going to be 6+ months because they really don't have the resources to prosecute these numbers. So but I mean, it is on a Section 13 now. It's maximum 6 months in prison, which they may force us to do, or some of us to do. I think I'm one of the early people up. They haven't. I don't think they've issued. I don't think they've charged everybody. I don't know why I'm so lucky, but So that's the outcome, I think, as things stand.
Yeah, I think what we're really talking about here is it is like an unknown quantity. It's no man's land. No one's really been here before, so no one knows what the reaction is going to be. I'm sure you're emotionally swaying, as many people are, between this is ridiculous. I mean, not only should Palestine Action not be a prescribed organization in the belief of many, many, many people in this country, but the fact that people are trying to stand up and highlight a genocide, in line with the 4th Geneva Convention, there's a legal moral obligation of governments, corporations, companies, and individuals to prevent a genocide. And in my mind, that's what Palestine Action have been trying to do. So it'll come down to this is a complete waste of police resources, of the judiciary, of bringing people to jail. So on one level, the whole thing's just a joke. And on another level, it's very, 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 very serious if the government is putting undue pressure on the judiciary to come down heavy on people in order to try and extinguish the light that you and others are carrying for justice and peace, dignity in the Levant and in Palestine. So how will this affect things going forward? I mean, they're very quick to say, oh, you're not be able to go to America if you've been charged under the terrorism things. You won't get visas and stuff. But, a lot of the people like are in their 60s. A lot of people are retired. They've been arresting people in wheelchairs, blind people with canes, disabled people. So like anybody who's still in the workforce or anyone who's a student potentially has a big, big, big impact going forward. How do you square that circle? How do you personally feel you put yourself in this position, which is morally the correct thing to do? If you're talking about good and evil, right and wrong, you're doing the good thing, you're fighting the evil, you're doing the right thing, you're fighting the wrong. Are you overly concerned about this? Have you kind of been able to process it yourself to accept whatever the outcome is? And are you concerned it might affect workplace, kind of working up the food chain in the workplace with promotions?
Well, I maybe that's why all of the people, the average age of the people arrested in August anyway was 54, and I'm just a year younger than that, 53. So am I worried about that? I mean, I don't care about promotions anymore. I don't think it's as important as this. And so I live with that. And I think at the end of the day, you have to be, we'll all die in the end, and you want to think, right, what is the thing? Was I, did I do something because it was the right thing to do, or did I not do something because I was afraid? So, I remember at the time when I was like lifted, I thought, ooh, I might lose my job. That's very true. And I did have to tell work. And thankfully work, have at the moment been understanding. I haven't really discussed with my colleagues. It's a couple of colleagues know, and my boss knows, but and they haven't done anything. They are just keeping it, like, just monitor things. And I think, to be honest, there's a lot of understanding of where I'm coming from within my workplace, which is very lucky. But yeah, I do wonder. I mean, I sort of feel privileged as an older person that I have, a career behind me, and I have, I've lived my life, and I do worry about sort of younger people who, like, I think it's our job, the older people, to do this, to take the stand, because we can afford to do it in every sense. We can afford to do it financially, career wise, and all that. We've done it. It's not, don't have much left to go, hopefully. But yeah, I worry about younger people who've made those sacrifices, and so yeah, it's the least we can do, isn't it? I mean, it's the least we can do. We have the privilege to take the hit. So am I worried I'd lose my job? I think it's an outside possibility. It's not definite that I would lose my job, even if I do get convicted. I think it's on the basis of, it's on a case-by-case basis whether I'd lose my job. It's not an automatic. But obviously I'll have to declare any convictions when I get it. And yeah, and oh no, I can't go to the States, but that I don't care about, to be honest with you. That is the least of my worries. So yeah. Do I worry? No, I'm not worried. I'm not really worried, to be honest. No, but I'm in the privileged position not to have to worry. Like, I'll have a roof over my head and food in my belly, whatever way it pans out.
Yeah, it's amazing. I keep thinking of a way. I asked that question about travel and stuff because so many times on the videos when cops are saying to people, if you get arrested, you'll not be able to go to so many countries in the world because you won't get a visa. Just that very pressure to try and force people of conscience to deny their conscience and put down a placard and walk away as a form of kind of moral coercion. So I was speaking to this girl, Francesca, for Prisoners for Palestine earlier on today, and she'd been remanded in custody for 9 months for some of the direct action that she was involved in, which was before Palestine Action was prescribed as a terrorist organization. She said that she doesn't regret anything that she did. Now, because she's been convicted and because she's on license, then she can talk about what she did because it's all in past tense and there shouldn't be any further repercussions. But I mean, that young girl, I didn't ask her age. I'd say she's in her late 20s. And the sacrifice that she's undergoing, and the 6 people now on hunger strike. So they're something like 4 weeks, I think, 2 weeks or 4 weeks into their case, with another 4 weeks to go. Some of those people could be in a coma if they continue on their hunger strike. I mean, just thinking about it, these must be some of the bravest, most courageous people that we have in this country. Young people who are prepared to use direct action, which technically is criminal damage. It's not terrorism. If you smash up a factory, okay, it can be construed as a criminal act and the damage to the property, and you're talking about a maximum of 2 years in jail or something. But, to brand these people as terrorists who are simply trying to prevent a genocide shows you the whole hypocrisy of the judicial system. And now these 3 judges replacing the 1 judge, it looks like it's going to be a complete stitch-up going forward. So what was your motivation then? I mean, you decided to go to London to stand beside the Defend Our Juries. And in fact, that girl, Francesca, was telling me that part of their defence was obviously going to be there's a genocide. We're trying to highlight that. We're trying to bring that to an end. And the judge directed the jury to disregard any evidence outside of these people committed criminal damage. Why they did it's not important. The fact that they did it is the only thing that was followed by the court. So he practically directed them to find this girl and her co-defendants guilty. So were you trying to, was it defend our juries was the reason why you went it? You wanted to have these people brought before the courts to be tried by their peers? in order to, allow the rationale behind what they do to get out into the public realm?
No, to be honest, I've only really learned more about that since. And I think it was about Palestine. It was about, and I think they'd had some protests in July that had got publicity. And again, I must have signed up to seen them on social media or something. And they had this thing like, we need, we'll go ahead if we get 500 people, right, in August. And I just thought, right, I'm just going to be one of those 500 people because they need numbers. And I just thought, right, I can be one of the numbers. I have the time. I can get over there. I can get back. It's easy enough to get back and forth to London from here. And it was really that. It was just to be a number, to add to the number of people and to just strengthen it. Because it did seem to be. Yeah, and it was a bit impulsive, really, I suppose. Like I probably booked the flight quite late and everything. And the family were going, what are you at? But yeah, it was to do something for Palestine. And yourself, Fra, like we do so much. We do this, that, protests, and we've done things that are maybe not always on the correct side of the law, which may not be mentioned, but it was just another thing. It was a sort of a different strategy that I saw them doing, and I thought, right, we'll see how that goes. But I suppose part of it is, if I'm honest, when I was sitting there with everyone, I was like, I'm just thinking of the people in Gaza and the West Bank. And I think they might see this. This might get into their realm. And I want them to know how much we care, that we care enough to get carried off by the police. That's how much we care about them. And I think that's probably the motivation, to be honest with you, is just to do something that might give some hope to the people in Gaza and the West Bank and Palestine. And because it must be, like, yourself, I've been watching some things that I can't even believe that I'll see, for the last, beyond 2 years. Obviously, it's accelerated in the last 2 years, but obviously for a decade. Well, I got really, became very aware of what was happening in Palestine only in 2015, to be honest. I would have known about it when I was growing up. I remember the first Intifada, kind of. But I think I just didn't really notice it. It wasn't really in the news and stuff after that. And I was shocked, really. I only became really conscious of what was going on in Palestine. I think I thought the Oslo agreements, I remember that being on the news and thinking, oh, sure, it's all sorted. And they got their Nobel Peace Prize and all that. And it was only when Jeremy Corbyn, when he became leader of the Labour Party, and they were on about him being an anti-Semite. And I thought, geez, I don't like the sound of this guy being an anti-Semite. So I started to read about it. And that is actually when I found out exactly what had been happening in Palestine. So yeah, it's probably 10 years. So yeah, I don't know why I'm saying all that, but it's just, it was just to do something to, I don't know. It's hard to know what's going to move the dial. It's hard to know what's going to shift our governments into stopping supporting Israel, and what it's up to. But it doesn't seem to have worked. It's quite shocking how much the Israeli lobby has been exposed, really, through this last 2 years in particular. It's scary, to be honest. And as you say, there'll be some of us are sacrificed for it. The hunger strikers and Palestine Action. I mean, I must say I really liked their strategy. Like, they went straight for the weapons manufacturers. Like, they were interfering with the supply chain of weapons that were being used in a genocide. And I thought that is like brilliant and brave. And then to call them terrorists, it's just making a joke of our judicial system, our, what terrorism is. And as I say, all you have to do is watch. Netflix has a documentary about the 7/7, like the bombings in London in when was it? 2005 maybe? When was that? And you sort of see the kind of terrorism there and blowing people, suicide bombers on trains, and you think, like, that's bloody terrifying. Somebody smashing up a drone is not terrorism. Somebody holding a sign is not terrorism, But that's where we're at, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with nearly everything you've said. You've said it's exposed the judiciary as a bit of a joke. What it's done is actually expose the whole of the Western complicit governmental EU, NATO, North America, Canada, Australia, the whole white Anglo-Saxon colonial settler mindset. You know, Zionism is a political ideology. It's a white European colonial imperialist capitalist colonialist footprint in the Levant. We're just watching in Palestine what's already happened in America when white Europeans went to America, happened in
Mm,
Canada, happened in Australia, happened in New Zealand. You've had the colonial white minority occupation in South Africa and Kenya and other countries. So it's just the latest installment of white European supremacist colonization. Uh, there was lots of things you talked about there, maybe to try and kind of delve into. But it's exposed America and the EU for all its complicity over all these
mm.
years. I mean, like the overflights by the RAF, I mean, targeting civilians in Gaza. And then we'll have, you see, I agree where people become frustrated because 2 years of marching hasn't saved one life in Gaza. The police and the government will let you march all day, every week, every month, so long as it's peaceful, so long as you apply for a permit, so long as the police are at the front and the police are at the back. So it's actually a state monitored, state endorsed parade. Then, you know, I'm not saying that there isn't a place for street protest, because there is. A lot of people's first steps on activism is to go to a protest and then to go to another protest and then to read and they educate themselves. But I feel Palestine Action and other groups have been pushed into a cul-de-sac because there is no justifiable response from the people in power to the justifiable protests and civil disobedience and protests on the streets. So when the government won't react to public anger, then people will escalate to the next step. People will keep raising their voices until they're heard. And if that voice is an act of damage to an aircraft or damage to a weapons depot or a weapons manufacturer, I mean, it's understandable in my mind that people feel the government won't listen and the government continues with its complicity. And that girl, Francesca, was telling me today that she believes that these prosecutions have a lot to do with the Israeli lobby and with
Oh, yeah.
Elbit. Through freedom of information, they have seen heavily redacted correspondence where it appears that Elbit, the Israeli lobby, by extension, I'm going to assume the Israeli government, are pressurizing the British government to
Mm.
end all forms of protest. We were in Belfast on Saturday and there was a huge anti-Palestinian, pro-Israeli, right-wing, racist counter-protest at Belfast City Hall. And we're
Mm.
witnessing the rise of the right across Europe. And I can't help but feel that a lot of this, especially with the pro-Israeli agenda that these people have, is being maybe financed and directed by people who have Zionism in their hearts and have money in their bank accounts and can afford to finance and direct these things. So are you concerned the way society's going? Are you concerned the direction the government's going? Are we becoming more authoritarian? Are we becoming more dictatorial? And is the rise of the right something that every immigrant and every refugee and every asylum seeker and everyone who is against racism and fascism should be concerned about?
Yeah, I think we're always concerned about. I mean, it's when it becomes mainstream. You know, it seems to be now that like racism was always there, but I think there was, racists didn't feel quite as empowered as they do. But you can hear like, among politicians, certain politicians and the media, like there is a sort of it's becoming more socially acceptable to be racist, I think, and that's really worrying, and will it happen? I mean, I like to have some hope. I like to think that most people are tolerant and accepting and welcoming of people from elsewhere, as we all have been people from elsewhere in some time in our lives. And I hope that ultimately that will win, because I do believe that the majority of people are good at heart, have are kind, want the best for everyone else. But I just think that there's maybe 10% or that are, not like that. And unfortunately, most of them seem to find their way into positions of power, into government, into organizations, and have more influence than maybe they deserve to have. But I am obviously, I would obviously be a completely anti-racist. I am disgusted by racism, and does that worry me? Yeah, I mean, I know we've had these issues recently in the north, and I must admit, I don't know how bad it's been in the past, if it's been always bad. Like, I do remember years ago, like, picking Combat 18 stickers off lampposts, so I think there was always like a kind of core of people who were like quite vicious racists, I don't know if it's got worse or not. I mean, do you think so, Fry? I don't know. I don't know if it's worse. I mean, it's noisier, but I don't know if it's just noisier or more people are like that,
I think for me, the frightening thing is, I'm just going to agree with you, actually, because when you were talking about, it's always been with us, you're quite right. Because I remember in the 1980s, when the National Front was at its height, their biggest single membership block was in Coleraine. The biggest National Front branch in the United Kingdom at that time was here in the north, in the divided north of Ireland. My concern is, I see this building. I actually know people, forgive me, who I grew up with, who I would be amazed at some of the things they say. And I'm not just amazed, I am shocked. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, like I know you like the back of my hand. We grew up as very, very, very close friends. And, part of it's the religious right, Lord Jesus, our Savior and King. And then we need to keep the immigrants out, because the crisis in capitalism, instead of blaming the bankers and blaming the people not paying their taxes, we're blaming some immigrant family. Somebody says, oh, I'd love to be in a hotel getting 3 meals a day.
I don't think it would.
I don't think people appreciate that if you're living with 2 kids and what's basically a bed sit, and you have no fridge, and you have no cooker, and you can't go shopping, and you can't make your own food, and you don't have any money, and you're kicked out between 10 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon, and you maybe can't sit in the hotel lobby because it gives it a bad look for other people coming in for a meal or whatever. So this whole kind of deflection from the state stuff. So I am worried, because I see that growing. And didn't they arrest 2 people recently who were planning to put a bomb in a mosque in Galway?
Oh God.
And you're having these people who are out and out racists attending these rallies. And so we had the race riots in Belfast. You had those race riots in Larne. 50% of the people brought before the courts had already previously been charged with domestic abuse, and yet claim that they're fighting to protect our women and our children, when these very same people are beating up their own women and their own children. So it's really, 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 really sickening. I'm quite concerned. I'm just glad that I hope this doesn't sound insulting, that I'm not a person of colour walking about Belfast at night in certain areas. Because I knew what it was like growing up in the Troubles with the Shankle Butchers in North Belfast and stuff. I used to go out at night. I was looking over my shoulder. I'd nearly be ready to get on my heels and go for a run if a car was slowly coming down the street towards me, coming up the street behind me. That's what I feel that some of the people living here now might have, that not consciously at the forefront of their mind, because like people aren't being beaten up on the streets, but in the back of their mind, there's always that worry, there's always that concern. Their kids are out playing in the street, the kids are coming home late, they're maybe not 100% sure where they are they safe? That whole insecurity would be my worry for people going forward. But we're nearly coming to an end here, so I'd just like to ask people to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And just give you the last word. What talked about, is this political repression we're seeing from the state? And if it is, where do you think that's going to go in 2 or 5 years' time? It used to be that this repression was abroad, And people used to say, oh, when they're doing it in Ireland, it'll soon come home to Britain and whatever. And you can see that happening. Like, they have the Special Powers Act, the Anti-Terrorism Act. Where do you think it's all going to go? And what's your concerns going forward?
Yeah, I think my concerns would be, that there's this creeping sort of, what's the word? That I can't think of the word now, but yes, where our rights are being removed, that justice is not, well, it was always a bit shaky, but, that the law is going to be abused, it's going to be used to silence protest, and that there won't be enough people to stand up against it. Because I suppose the truth is that there's very few people who actually, are going to be sympathetic to the likes of me, say, they just go, well, you chose to do that, you should have kept the law as the law, and I think that it will just be, mission creep. I think it already has been. So, I think that the worryingly, I think that it seems like the Israeli lobby or just the silencing of any voices that oppose what Israel is doing, which is outrageous what it's doing. But those of us who oppose it are silenced. And we've seen that in the last 2 years, that there is a genocide happened and is happening, and not one government lifted a finger to stop it. There was a lot of talk, but there was very little action. So I think, to be honest with you, that it's just the thing that cannot be fought. The Israeli lobby is so powerful, and the British government and the Irish government probably as well eventually will do whatever they can to silence opposition to Israel and what it does, because that seems to be all that they care about, to be honest. So it's not good. It's not good for
Yeah, I would say, maybe just in closing there, you mentioned Jeremy Corbyn earlier. I mean, we're back to 2017, I believe, when he was running, for
the
minister.
general election.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for the general election. He was branded an anti-Semite. That was long before 2023. They destroyed his career, and Starmer were the people who did that to bring him down. The best prime minister Britain never had. We are watching, in my opinion, the political repression of dissent in all over Europe. You see the German beating
Oh
people up.
God, yeah.
They
Germany's
so much
awful.
lift. Yep. That Irish girl repeatedly punching her in the face. And she
Right.
offered
Yes.
absolutely no
Shock.
resistance to the cops. She just challenged their thuggery, and the next minute she was at the end of their thuggery. But I'm going to wish you the best of luck when it comes to January, and hopefully
Thank
your
you.
case will be sooner rather than later, so it's not just hanging over your head for another 6
Oh,
months.
look, if it is, it is,
Okay, and maybe we'll touch base sometime after January, and you can let us know how you're getting on.
All right. Cheers, Fra. I'm sure I'll see you around. Anyway,
It's a small world.
it is. All the best.
Thank you.